In April and May of 2026, the global maritime travel industry faced a crisis that would forever change the rules of safety at sea. A scheduled transatlantic voyage turned into a massive rescue operation and a true epidemiological thriller. This story proved one simple but harsh truth. The greatest threat to a modern, reliable ship might not be a breach in the hull, a storm wave, or a fire in the engine room. The greatest danger turned out to be a microscopic virus that came aboard with the passengers and turned a luxury liner into an isolated steel trap in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The timeline of this unprecedented maritime epic began on April 1st, 2026. A modern expedition vessel named Hondius, sailing under the flag of the Netherlands, departed from the port of Ushuaia, located in the deep south of Argentina. This was the beginning of a grand 33-day cruise. The route was designed for experienced and wealthy travelers. The ship was to cross the South Atlantic, sail along the western coast of Africa, pass the Cape Verde Islands, and complete its long journey in the Canary Islands at the port of Tenerife. Such a trip was far from cheap. The cost of a single ticket for this expedition flight ranged from $15,000 to $25,000, depending on the cabin class. For this money, people were buying not just a vacation, but a unique experience, lectures from scientists, and a guarantee of the highest level of safety. There were about 150 people on board. The initial stage of the voyage proceeded absolutely normally. People enjoyed the ocean and shared their impressions of the land excursions through the forests of Patagonia, which they had attended before the cruise began. Everyone passed a standard temperature check before boarding, but no one could have known that a deadly threat was already inside several passengers. To understand why the situation spiraled out of control, we need to look at the ship itself. The liner Hondius is a true engineering marvel. It has the highest polar class of structural strength and was built for expeditions into harsh ice. To ensure comfort in any freezing weather, the ship is equipped with a powerful, centralized climate control and ventilation system. Air constantly circulates inside the ship, is heated, and is supplied to all cabins and halls. In the context of an epidemic, this innovative system played a fatal role. The enclosed space, shared ventilation, and close contact of people during the first weeks of the voyage turned the ship into a perfect incubator. The reliable steel box, which was supposed to protect against storms, became a trap with nowhere to run. The disease that boarded the ship is caused by a rare Hantavirus. Usually, such viruses are transmitted to humans only when they inhale dust containing the waste particles of infected wild rodents. This is a disease that is almost never transmitted from one person to another. However, in the forested regions of Argentina and Chile, there is one unique and highly aggressive strain called the Andes virus. It is the only hantavirus in the world capable of being transmitted directly from person to person through breathing and close contact in enclosed spaces. Another insidious feature of this virus is its long incubation period. From the moment of infection on shore to the appearance of the first symptoms, anywhere from 1 to 8 weeks can pass. This means an infected passenger could walk the decks for weeks, interact with other people, and spread the disease while feeling absolutely healthy. Everything changed in mid-April, when the ship had already sailed deep into the open waters of the Atlantic, cut off from the mainland by thousands of miles of water. The first symptoms in the sick resembled severe seasickness or the flu. People complained of a fever, headache, and severe muscle pain. The doctors on board prescribed standard treatment, but Hantavirus does not respond to common medications. Within a few days, the condition of the first patients began to deteriorate rapidly. The Andes virus brutally attacks the blood vessels in the lungs. They become weak. Blood plasma rapidly begins to fill the person's lungs, and severe cardiopulmonary syndrome develops. The person literally begins to suffocate from a lack of oxygen. The capabilities of the ship's medical facility were simply insufficient to combat a disease of this level. The situation became critical. 3 passengers died right on board, despite all the efforts of the medics. More than 8 other people were in extremely critical condition, requiring a constant supply of oxygen from cylinders, the reserves of which were rapidly melting away. The ship's captain immediately imposed a strict quarantine regime, locking everyone in their cabins. Upon receiving reports of the dead and the fast-spreading infection, the captain changed course and headed at full speed toward the nearest land, the Cape Verde Islands. The ship sent out an international distress signal, begging for an emergency medical evacuation. However, the authorities of the island nation made a harsh decision. Understanding the high mortality rate of this virus and having very weak resources in their own hospitals, the government of Cape Verde banned the liner from entering the port. The ship was forced to drop anchor far out in the ocean. This was the most difficult psychological stage. Healthy passengers sat in their locked cabins, listening to their breathing every minute and terrified of feeling the first symptoms. They could see the lights of the shore through their portholes, but could not get there. The situation required the immediate intervention of the World Health Organization. Only after complex negotiations did the government of Spain agree to accept the ship in the Canary Islands. The finale of this drama unfolded from the 10th to the 12th of May. When the Hondius finally arrived at the island of Tenerife, the local port resembled a military base. The area was completely surrounded by police. Medical teams in hermetic suits of the highest biological protection level approached the ship. The evacuation was carried out with maximum caution. Severely ill passengers were carried out on stretchers, placed in special, transparent medical capsules with negative pressure so that the contaminated air would not escape. They were urgently delivered to the infectious disease isolation wards of local hospitals. The other passengers underwent strict medical control right on the pier. People were placed in closed quarantine bases and later sent to their home countries on special chartered medical planes. More than 20 nations met their citizens, only to immediately place them under additional quarantine at home. The consequences of this incident forced the global cruise industry to urgently change its standards. Now, companies are required to thoroughly study the epidemiological history of tourists, exactly where they have been and whether they had contact with wildlife before boarding. Engineers began redesigning ventilation systems on ships, adding special high-level medical filters and bactericidal lamps to the air supply ducts. The story of the expedition vessel Hondius served as a harsh reminder to all of humanity. In the modern world, there are no longer any local diseases. A threat that had always lived in the deep forests of South America found itself in the middle of the Atlantic in a matter of weeks and spread to 20 countries around the world. This incident proved that preparedness for invisible medical threats is now just as vital a condition for survival at sea as the strength of the hull and the accuracy of navigational instruments.